Hello, welcome back to the channel. Today we're looking at another Leetcode problem. This is problem number 3, the longest substring without repeating characters. Let's go ahead and read the description first before we jump in and think about how to solve this problem. So we're told that given a string s, we want to find the length of the longest substring without repeating characters. So in their example they give us, they tell us that s is this string of characters, and the output for the longest substring is 3, and they say that the answer is ABC with a length of 3. So they get this is the longest substring that doesn't have any repeating characters. This is one of a few different solutions because BCA is also length 3 and has no repeating characters. So is CAB. So they don't mean that it has to be exactly ABC. This could be any of the valid substrings that don't have repeating characters. In this example down here, they give us a substring with 5 B's in a row, and so the longest substring with no repeating characters is just 1, so that's what we output here. So now that we've read through the description, let's kind of think about the logic of how to solve this. So edge cases first. If we're given a string that has no characters or a string that only has 1 character, there can't be any repeating characters because that takes at least 2. So in that case, we can just return whatever length of string we're given. That's a pretty easy base case. But then otherwise, we need to check each substring as we go through. And so there's kind of a quadratic way to think about it and a linear way to think about it. Quadratic, which would be O of n squared time, we could think about this in each substring we check to see if there's any repeated characters, and if so, that's false, and if not, then we check if that's the longest substring that we've seen so far and set our value equal to that length. Linear time is a little bit harder to figure out. We just need to keep track of it's sort of a 2-pointer, like sliding window type of thought process, but it's not actually that exact method to solve this. It's actually just a little bit easier than that. Let's go ahead and start writing out our base case so we can get something started. So for this, we want to say if the length of the string that we're given, which is s, if this is less than 2, we know that our length is either 1 or 0, and there can't be any repeating characters in a string that's less than length 2. So in this case, we can just return the length of s. So that's pretty straightforward. And then after this, we want to figure out, okay, how do we go through this string and find the longest substring? Well, at minimum, we know that there will be at least 1 length substring because our string is longer than 1, and with every character repeating, there's still at least 1 as our answer. So we can set our answer, we'll just say we have a best value. This is the longest substring we've seen so far. We're just going to set this equal to 1 to start with. And then here I like to set this equal to a previous substring so that we can keep track of, as we loop through each character in this, we can figure out if we should be adding this character to our previous substring and checking the length there, or if we should be modifying that previous substring, like if we find a repeated character. So we need to keep track of the substring that we've seen so far, and we're just going to call that previous substring. So this is previous, we'll just abbreviate a little bit and say prev sub equals, and to start with, this is going to be the first character because we know we have at least 2 characters and we want to loop through all of them. So we'll just set our previous substring equal to s at 0. That's the first character. So for each letter in our substring, we want to check it against, or for each letter in the string that we're given, we want to check it against our current substring and see if we already have that character. So we're going to say for letter in S, and we already have our first character here. So for this, we can actually go through from the first index onward and say for letter in S at 1, which is every character other than S at 0. We want to loop through all of these and check if they're already in our previous substring. So we're going to say if letter is in prev sub, then we want to update our previous substring to only include the characters after the first occurrence of this letter, which sounds kind of confusing, but let's think about it this way. So if we're looping through this and we get to, okay, so we've started with A is not in our substring. We're gonna add A to our substring to start with. Then we check B, okay. So we would say B is not in our substring. We're gonna make our substring include B, so now this is equal to AB. And if we get C added to our substring, and then we look at A, this would be in our substring already. And so instead of moving on past ABCA and starting to look at AB, this is actually still a valid substring, BCA. So we want to look at the first index of the letter that is already in our previous substring. So when we get to checking ABCA, we want to remove the frontmost value that matches the letter we're on now. So moving forward, we would drop the front A here, and next we would check BCAB instead. So in code, that would look like previous substring equals the current previous substring, but then this is only from the index of this first letter onward, which would include BCAB in this case. So we're going to do previous substring dot index, and then this is the index of the letter that we just matched, and index finds the first occurrence of this letter in the substring. So we know that we'll be finding the first occurrence here instead of the last one when this is our substring. And then we just want to move on one past this. So we're going to do +1, and we want to include everything after that. So this will set our substring when we have a matching letter equal to the substring after that letter onward. So it would be equal to BCA, and then in our next iteration we would add B and do the same thing where we would drop this B and then move on with CABC, etc. So that keeps our previous substring updated accordingly. Now we just want to make sure that we add the letter into the previous substring when we see it here. And we're always going to add that regardless of whether or not we already have the letter, because we're keeping our previous substring updated the whole time. So we can just add that here, previous substring plus equals letter. And then our best value needs to be the maximum of what is now and our previous substring, because this is always going to be the longest valid substring that we've seen so far. So we can just say best equals the max of what it is now and the length of our previous substring. And then that actually keeps this updated all the way and keeps our best value updated as we go. So this will be in linear time because we only look at each letter once, and we can just return our best value. And this is the full solution. Let's go ahead and submit this to make sure it runs. All right, so there it is. As you can see, it works. And this is the finished solution. I'll leave this here for a second so you can look at it. And thank you so much for watching. I will see you all in the next video.